don't need to score 30 a night, but I'm in one of the best zones offensively I've been in my career. I don't plan on stopping it. That's just how I feel. I feel fantastic, shooting the ball extremely well. I don't go into the game saying, oh, you got to score 30 or you guys don't have a chance to win. I just play the game, and the scoring has just been happening organically.
All right, welcome back to NBA Today. I'm here with Ramona, Richard, and Chene. So LeBron is saying that he is in the zone. Don't let him get in his zone. Richard, do you see anything different from him?
No, I don't see it. Honestly, the thing I take from that is that, over the course of his career, he has become extremely more humble as he's gotten older. Look, all kidding aside, look. Big fella's balling right now. Kind of like Joel Embiid is balling. There's certain guys that are balling. But unfortunately, his groove is not leading to the wins that they have over the course of the first 16 years or 17 years, 19 years, whatever it is of his career. And that's been the biggest issue for the Lakers.
Well, you said be humble. Did you see what he said on Instagram?
What he said? Oh, no, we're joking.
No, at least he didn't go third person.
I'm just saying. He said he should be mentioned in the same conversation with MJ and Brady.
Isn't he, though?
But he
next to
is.
rookie, somehow they're looking older. Just give him some bars. He had some time.
Yeah, he's got some time. Look, he's just right now. It
There's
doesn't
no
matter.
reason for him. He's already called himself the king. He does not need to be humble. I think he's got it control.
I'm gonna write a rap.
Oh yeah, I got bars. Don't worry about that. I think that with LeBron James, I don't mind him controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
Because the Lakers, they've been trying to find ways to win. They said, all right, you're gonna start with the ball in your hands. Actually, we're gonna start you at center, but no matter what, I'm gonna get 30. And so I think with AD back, they're still in the playoff position. Things aren't as dire as it seems, but I don't know what you think.
Well, let's switch gears then to Anthony Davis, because what is the latest, Ramona? What are the chances that we could see him tomorrow at Brooklyn?
I still think it's pretty slim at this point. I mean, look, when they upgraded him to questionable before that Miami game, everybody went, whoa.
Right. Me. I went, whoa.
Just like that, right? And I think they did that in a way that, he's close, he's getting closer, but they knew it was probably unlikely he would play in that Miami game. He went through and did some work yesterday. He's going to do some work again before the game. I mean, it's possible, but they're really being cautious with it. I think he comes back sometime on this trip, as Dave McMenamin reported a couple weeks ago, but they can't get him back soon enough, because as somebody put it in the Laker organization the other day, each one of these games that LeBron is playing is like 1.5 games because of how much work he's having to do.
Well, and we should note that the video that we just showed, it is a little bit old. It was before this road trip, because when he was shooting in Miami, he wasn't wearing a brace on that knee. But Chene, is the pending return of Anthony Davis, does that just, boom, solve all the Lakers' problems?
No, all of their problems can't be solved through one player. It's going to have to take a collective, effort for them to all get back on track. But I will say this, I do like them being a little bit more cautious with him coming back on the road, because all those flights, it doesn't matter if they're private or commercial, they add up on your body. And so I like him coming on the latter half of the road trip, because I'm someone who's known how to deal with coming back. And I will say this, defensively, that is the biggest upgrade that you're going to get with AD back, because this is a team that right now has the 5th worst defense. They allow about the 7th most points in the paint ever since AD has been out. This guy has been an all-defensive player for multiple years, and that's the biggest boost that they'll have. They know that they have a helicopter in the paint that can swat things, and they can play more aggressive on the perimeter, and I think that will amount in more wins. So if it's one person, AD is a huge boost, but we all know that the Lakers have to do it together. One player's not good enough.
Woo! Yeah, well, look, you look at it down there, 13-14 with Davis, 10-10 without them. Is there any difference? Is there any? Now I understand, before everyone starts going crazy, LeBron James missed a ton of that time. They were dealing with injuries at THT and Nunn, who's still struggling. So, they've had some issues there getting their entire lineup healthy. But yes, to answer the question, is Anthony Davis going to solve it all? It's not like when you're looking at Giannis and when you're looking at what his team's record is when he's in there. Ultimately, he's one of the top 5 big men in this league. He's one of the top 5 big men in the league, and whoever's adding that type of level of talent, it's going to be improvement, but they still collectively have soul searching to do once he comes back.
Look, the only way the Lakers get better is from within. There's no help coming from the outside. They could try to do something at the trade deadline, but they really don't have the assets to get much done. And so it's on those 3 guys. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Russell Westbrook. They made the deal over the summer. They said they were going to do it together. It's on them to figure it out.
Right. And, we haven't seen it come together for a string of multiple games thus far. I know that they are hoping that getting Anthony Davis back, if nothing else, provides some sort of morale boost, Richard.
Yeah, well, they were saying, look, for the last 5 years, we've talked about Anthony Davis being a top 5 player, a top 5 talent, when he's going to lift himself to Defensive Player of the Year, MVP candidate. Well, right now, he's looking like a top 5 big man. He's not even looking like a top 5 in his position, because you're talking about Giannis. I would put above him. I would put Embiid above him, and I would put Jokic above him. So right now, he currently, all of that ability and talent and won a championship, he right now is probably the 4th best big man in this league.
On Perk's list, that would be DeAndre Ayton. So he would actually.
I would put Anthony Davis above DeAndre, but not.
The 75 greatest players of all time.
I think it's also players available as well.
I mean, that's also fair. Ramona's 3 games. He's averaging nearly 28 points per game this season. That's when Kevin Durant is out of the lineup, as he is right now. And then you've got James Harden. He totaled 13 points and 13 assists in the loss. He shot 4 free throws in the game. And then afterwards, both Harden and head coach Steve Nash, they were unhappy with the officiating. Take a listen.
Do you feel like you're getting the benefit of the whistle the same way?
No.
Why do you think that is?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I don't even want to talk about it, but it's definitely ones where there's like stiff arms and trips and things like that. But then on the other end, there's no consistency. So it's like, it's frustrating. I think there's nights where, though, it's fair, and then there's other nights where it feels like he gets targeted a little bit. It's just automatically gets lumped into that point of emphasis where he's creating the foul. Which is not always the case at all.
All right, so Richard, what's your reaction here to what Steve Nash and James Harden said about the officiating?
Well, one, I think as a coach, that's one of the codes. You always support your player. When one of your players is saying, I don't feel like this is just. So it's hard to kind of understand. We've seen it with Mike Malone, with Jokic. We've seen this time and time again. With James, I think he is one of those kind of transcendent players that young players in this generation have copied him, because he's taken the game to different places. He's showed the Euro, the step back 3, so many things that he's done has been, fairly new to the game. And so his inability to adjust to some of these new calls that every player in the league is having to adjust to, I think that's unfair. I think that's unfair on the league. I think it's a little unfair to him, but he's got to adjust. Your ability as a player to adjust will determine your greatness, and he's not doing a good job of it right now.
Yeah, I just think, honestly, he probably didn't want to say too much because he doesn't want to be that guy that's complaining after a loss. Like, if I were able to get a couple foul calls, you know that's not the case for this game. But what I will say is I do believe that James Harden is the poster child for the rule change. Yes. And we've both been in locker rooms. If we're competing against the Brooklyn Nets, right, on the court, I'm going to be like, yo, like, I'm just being physical. Let me play the game. You're telling the ref to James Harden, and the ref is going to be like, you know what? Let them play, because everyone knows he's easy to say that against more than other players in this league. So I understand that, this change, a lot of people have adapted at this point. But for James, if I'm his opponent, I'm walking onto the court and saying, like, well, this is the guy that plays aggressively and he always gets away with it. And you might have that human error where it's higher against him versus anybody else.
Right. But
go ahead.
Go.
No, only thing I was going to say is that when we're talking about just pure statistics, like, he shot 37% from 3 last year. Sure. He's shooting 33% this year.
Right.
He shot 46% from the field. He's shooting 41. Now, you can say, oh, well, that's a part of my game, the free throws, but it wasn't the only part of your game when you first went to Houston.
And his assist game is arguably better in Brooklyn than it was in Houston.
Here's my thing. So a couple of weeks ago, right, Brian Windhorst had a story in which James Harden said that he basically had a kumbaya meeting with the refs and they came to an understanding. So I guess my question now, Chiney, is at this point in the season, right, does it feel like because we're halfway, is this when everyone should adjust, or is this what you expect moving forward?
I expect that this is going to be a high and low type of, player feel thing for James. And I think his situation is probably isolated based on everyone pointing and saying that he's the culprit for these rule changes. But
were people saying Trae Young was the culprit earlier?
No.
But James was like by far.
Trae learned a lot from James. Let's just say that.
I mean, the numbers don't lie, though.
No, they don't lie, because the NBA was trying to tweak some of this stuff. But this is what I think about James Harden. He's such a great player. He's one of the great players of this generation. You have to have the ability to adjust. If not just only you.
And I'll also say that, if this is their greater issue, that's not a horrible issue considering Kevin Durant being out, meaning they're number 2 currently right now in the Eastern Conference standings. They're only 1 win back from being tied from first. They're still in a good position. I think he's just sort of, both him and his coach are like, hey, we need to control this side of our narrative.
Kevin Durant didn't have any trouble adjusting. Steph Curry didn't have any trouble adjusting.
KD's like
James Harden didn't have any trouble.
KD never has relied really on foul calls.
But I'm saying he's in that same book as the top 7 players. Joel Embiid didn't have any problem. Jokic
I don't think he wanted to answer the question, Richard, but I think he just said, hey, I'm going to be honest.
Well, that's a good way
here.
to get some of your money taken if you answer it.
He's got plenty of money.
Well, speaking of,
let's talk about money.
I actually want to revisit something, though, that happened a little bit earlier in the weekend. It was notable Friday in the Bulls game against the Bucks. So Grayson Allen, he picked up a flagrant 2 and was ejected for this foul on Alex Caruso. And it turned out that Caruso suffered a wrist injury that's going to require surgery, and it's going to sideline him for 6 to 8 weeks. And Allen has been given a suspension that is 1 game following the incident. So for more on this story, we have our senior NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski. So Woj, was Allen's prior history considered when the league came up with the suspension?
Malika, really more what was considered was the fact that Alex Caruso got injured, and the league is allowed to do that because initially it appeared that the league was going to allow just the ejection to stand, the flagrant 2 foul, the ejection of Allen from the game. And then when they found out the next day on Saturday that Alex Caruso had suffered a fractured wrist, then it was, they ultimately came to the 1 game suspension. But when you look at prior history for Alex Caruso, for Grayson Allen, he had 1 flagrant in the NBA. And certainly, what people were referring to. They're referring to Duke when there were instances of him tripping people, putting his leg out. That's not relevant to the NBA looking at. Now, it was Billy Donovan's opinion, and he brought up the history. And clearly that's what Billy Donovan or those in Chicago were talking about. But the NBA is looking at your history with flagrant fouls or plays where players may have get injured or somebody would consider it a dirty play. He had 1 flagrant in, I think, about 167 NBA games. I think the injury to Caruso essentially got him the 1 game suspension.
Right, because the Bulls, long term now, they have injuries to both Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso. So are they looking into any temporary replacement options as we approach the trade deadline, Woj?
Yeah, listen, they can sign some players to 10-day contracts. They can do some things, players on the margins, G League players. But, the idea that you're going to go out and make a significant trade because you have Ball and Caruso out for 8 weeks, it's not how they're going to handle it. Listen, they're still tied in the loss column at the top of the East. Of course, they're only 3 games away from 7th place. But this is a team still with enough talent with DeMar DeRozan, with Zach LaVine, who hopefully is back here in the next day or 2 for the Bulls. They have enough talent, to continue winning. Now, certainly they may not be able to compete to stay in first place in the East. Caruso, Ball are significant players for them, but you've seen them have developed some young backcourt depth this season. And this is a Chicago team that, they're going to get these players back. And they piled up so many wins. I think it's even more impressive given all the COVID issues they had, injuries they had, and the fact that they built themselves a cushion to withstand this, still be in the playoff chase, and get everybody back in plenty of time for the postseason.
Well, and you still have someone like DeMar DeRozan going off for 41 points, right? And so this is a team that is incredibly deep. They're talented. Let's see what they can do without Alex Caruso for at least a little bit. Woj, thank you so much. Really appreciate you stopping by. But Woj did mention that the injury history, potentially that wasn't something that the league was considering, but it's something we're going to take a look at. So in 2016, while at Duke, Allen tripped an opposing player and received a technical foul. So he was later seen having a very upset reaction on the Duke bench. And then let's go to 2019 because it was at Summer League that Allen picked up 2 flagrant fouls within seconds of each other and then was ejected from the game. And it's very rare that you see something like that at Summer League. And then in 2020, Allen was seen trying to trip up, it appears, Trae Young on the court, which then prompted a Twitter exchange between the two. And Allen said to Trae on Twitter, "Damn, that must have really, really hurt. I'm sorry. I hope that you are okay." So coming back with the panel here today, I am curious, given Allen's history, and I know Woj said that really wasn't something that was considered, it was more the injury that occurred, Is a one-game suspension fair, do you think?
I think it's fair. And, the history part, I know a lot of people will say, oh, this guy has a propensity to do these types of things. You also hope that he can grow as a player. And I think it was really smart that Woj noted he's only had a limited amount of, flagrant fouls in his time, in the league. And a lot of people had even been raving about his performance, for the Bucks as of late. But I will say this, I think it was interesting. Duke at the time self-imposed a suspension on him for his behavior. I think these are like extenuating circumstances that Woj is absolutely correct. If someone's injured, you have to look at it again, because this is a year where they're ramping up the physicality of the game. You're starting to see a little bit more of, scuffles, a lot of, hold me back, bro moments. And so you don't want these types of things to seem normalized. It just is unfortunate that Grayson Allen, once again, it adds to that long list of events.
I 100% agree with everything that everyone has said, because it's the league is looking at this. But let's talk about how the players are looking at this. Because as a player, Grayson Allen was one of the best players in college basketball. He's playing for Duke. It's high profile. So when he was tripping players, I was still a player. And we were all looking in the locker room like, yo, if he tried to do some of that nonsense to somebody, there would be issues. But the only problem with the way the league is formatted today, if I have issues with him and I want to go fight him, if I want to go do something, like, you don't do that, you're suspended for 5 games. That's going to cost you $800,000. The biggest thing for me watching this game is when he was laughing and joking on the sideline. He was laughing and joking on the sideline afterwards. And even when you see him walk off to the court, he's laughing and not laughing, but just kind of smiling. Like, he doesn't understand the severity of this. He doesn't understand what's going on. He obviously, he's watching this, waiting. He knows what he did was kind of wrong. But he's like, look, he's laughing and joking on this, which is not saying that you have to be in this somber moment. But even when you're walking off, you're doing this. And the point that I'll say about this is that you're playing against the Chicago Bulls. You're the Milwaukee Bucks. Your team is battling for number 1. You're the defending champions. You're doing all of this stuff that you've been brought into. So now all of a sudden a player is injured because of your antics.
Should not be tolerated.
That's one of those things that you're just like, hey, Grayson, you're a talented player. You got to mature. You got to grow up. I don't have any problem with the first initial foul. Guys can get hurt doing anything, but it's that extra part that took a guy out for 6 weeks against one of the top opponents in your league. Those are the things that can cause problems.
And there's a code when, you're mad in the heat of the moment. Obviously, you see someone, you're like, why? I didn't foul. And then when you realize someone's hurt, all hoopers are like, nothing matters.
And I think back to the Nikola Jokic situation, right, which was obviously different. In the moment, it seemed, shoving people in the back, all that stuff. There was no basketball involved in that play. However, Nikola Jokic came after the game, spoke to reporters, and said that he was sorry. The Bucks issued a statement, by the way. Nowhere in that statement did the organization either quote Allen or say that they wished Alex Caruso well. And so to me, those are the things that I see as, I don't know what he was laughing about, Richard. Maybe someone told
no, but even if someone says something funny, Malika.
That's fair. But there was other opportunities for us to hear his voice, and we haven't heard it yet. But you know who we have been hearing, based on his play, is Joel Embiid. So coming up on NBA Today, Joel Embiid, he dropped 30 again in a win last night. So Chiney is going to break down what he's done so well recently. And LeBron says he's in, quote, one of the best zones he's been in offensively. So how can Cubs, who beat the Grizzlies to improve to 12-3 since Christmas? And Luka Doncic, he finished with 37 points, while Ja Morant, a.k.a. G12, dropped 35. And so Dallas is now 5th in the West. And so for more on Luka and the Mavs, I'm joined now by senior writer Ramona Shelburne. And so the Mavs, they're having all of the success despite Luka struggling from 3. He's shooting 22% from behind the line in January. That's the second worst 3-point field goal percentage in the entire league. But you spoke to Jason Kidd. What is he attributing their success to right now?
Defense. I mean, their defense in January, 98.8 points a game, is 5.7 points a game better than any other team. Defense. And Jason Kidd kind of laughed. I go, what's the key to all that? He goes, everyone's buying into the defensive schemes. I mean, Luka's trying on defense. He tries.
Right.
When your best player, he's not known for defense. He's never going to be an all defensive player. But when he is contributing and being part of the defensive schemes, it's inspiring for everybody else. Plus, and this is key, Malika, Kristaps Porzingis, 5 blocks in the first 24 minutes. When he's protecting the rim, changes everything for the Mavs.
When he's healthy and protecting the rim, because that's been such an issue for him. I do want to go over to the Knicks, though, Ramona, because they snapped a 3-game losing streak last night against the Clippers. Julius Randle, he finished with 24 points, but maybe more significant, he spoke to reporters after the game for the first time since January the 6th. So what's the latest on Randle versus sort of all things New York right now?
Well, I mean, he's been better on the road than he has been at home, which tells you something, right? And at home now you have fans again. Okay, so this isn't an empty building anymore. He signed that big contract. I think he's feeling a little, in terms of how the Knicks treat him. He said last night, I really appreciate owner Jim Dolan for standing by me. What he means is the Knicks paid the fine. The Knicks got fined $25,000 for Randall not talking, and the Knicks paid the fine. Now, that's some good organizational support, but he also needs to, you've been in New York.
Right.
You're a New York City girl.
It's no joke.
How's that going to play if you don't talk to the media for weeks?
It's not going to play very well. No. And it hasn't played very well. That's where the fines come in. Yeah. That's where then when you go and sit in front of reporters and you say, well, the organization didn't make me available, that doesn't become an acceptable enough answer, especially for that press corps. All right, let's go to the Great Northwest, though, because Damian Lillard, he injury on Saturday, and he said basically
perked up when they heard him say that.
Sure.
Okay? Because when he says, I'm in no rush to come back, there are several Portland Trailblazers who would be very attractive trade candidates. And if you look at where they are in the standings, what they need to do to build something around Damian Lillard and how they can their payroll right now, it would make a lot of sense for them to look at offers for guys like Yusuf Nurkic, who will be a free agent, to look at other teams and to look at other players on that roster. And I think that is an interesting situation to watch, Malika, even though they have been pretty good.
Right. And you and I both know that when Damian Lillard says, oh, I'm in no rush to come back, that's not his subtle trade demands. That's usually him just being like, oh, I'm in no rush to come back. Yeah. But I can understand why GMs, their ears perked up there. Ramona, thank you so much.
Malika.
Will you please come back to talk a little bit of Lakers a little bit later?
Okay, since you asked nicely. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Because right now, we got to go to the top of the top, kind of like Ramona's shoes, the tippy top.
Let's go. Where are we going? Where am I standing? I don't even know.
No one cares.
No, I don't. Okay, fair.
We are joined by Richard and Janae. So let's catch up on what people were locked into all weekend.
Outside of my Rams winning. Let's go.
Okay.
Top of the top. Let's go.
Let's get to the top of the top. So top
your helmet?
rookie performance.
It doesn't fit.
Oh, my helmet's coming later.
I played this back 3 or 4 times because Jalen Suggs in Orlando, he showed out with a little 300
Oh, okay.
dunk.
And that wasn't just it, though.
Okay, Jalen Suggs, I see you. Little known fact, he was also a football player. Could have been a football player.
We're
going to keep
He was a football player of the year.
We're going to keep this trend going. We're going to keep this trend. But my young guy plays with a level of physicality.
This rookie class is so much fun.
Look at that guy's face.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, now listen, when T. Ross, a guy that knows how to put
I'm
up.
sorry, DeMar.
Did you see his watch, though?
Sorry.
When he
They
put his
couldn't
hands up?
believe it.
You didn't see
Ooh, if he can start doing this more. Oh! Catch a body, DeMar.
For
DeMar,
children's viewing.
listen, if you hadn't done it to 1,000 people, I'd be giving you more mess.
DeMar's still winning, though.
Handles. Let's go to the Bay because Jordan Poole. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Oh, not the JC.
So I saw someone.
Don't do it to my guy JC.
Those are the worst. Like the in and out. The in and out hezzy.
And then he made it.
Toscano Anderson say no running by the pool.
No running by the pool. Toscano, that is my favorite thing. I will steal it. I'm citing my source right now.
Even Jordan Clarkson had to make that.
Woo, no running by the pool.
All right, top dimes. We had some dimes yesterday in first in Charlotte, LaMelo Ball. I mean,
you know what's coming.
Oh, come on. Oh, with the reverse?
This is easy for him. Yeah,
come
that's
on.
so easy.
All-star game. See you there, young fella.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
Let's see you.
Goodness. And then we had to go to Denver because Nikola Jokic, look at this. What?
That was,
with the
you know how hard it is? Usually you do it with one hand, but you're doing it with two. That's harder to get past your head.
I mean,
different.
Oh my goodness.
He's different. Jokic,
All right,
MVP.
last but certainly not least, the beast in the East, Joel Embiid.
What?
I mean, don't worry, we didn't get to see him there.
What just happened?
We didn't want to see him there, but
okay, here we go.
It's something special.
Oh!
Top poster.
I don't know. Look, this is just like child abuse here, which we do not condone.
Not at all.
When you're going to take little kids like that and do it to them, what?
That's a man.
I mean, I
That's
know
a grown
you do this
man.
to your sons at home.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I dunk on my kids all the time. Listen, they're going to have to learn.
I don't know if you saw Andrew Hawkins. Yeah, he was doing that.
You got to. Teach your kids early.
More on Joel Embiid later in the show. But speaking of big men, coming up on NBA in a row and have a 5-game homestand coming up. So, Richard, yes or no? All-star starter for Trey?
That's up to the fans, and if the fans are going to vote him in, then that's what it is.
It's partly up to the voters. All right, so the Suns keep rolling. They got their 6th straight win on Saturday against the Pacers, and they are a league best 36-9. So Phoenix has the longest active winning streak in the NBA. And then the Warriors, they beat the Jazz by 2 on Sunday. But Steph Curry, he had another tough shooting night, just going 5 for 20 from the field and 1 of 13 from 3. So here's what he said when he was asked if he was ever going through a slump like this after the game.
I mean, not this many games, probably just in the way 82-game season games keep coming, and you're trying to make the adjustments and again shoot shots that you normally take and make. So the work will show. Just sticking with it, keep winning games in the process, and don't change anything about my approach.
So one note on the Warriors' opponents, the Jazz, last night. Our Tim McMahon reported that Rudy Gobert will miss tonight's game against the Suns with a calf strain. And remember, Utah's already without Donovan Mitchell, who's in concussion protocols. But I want to talk about the Warriors. So we welcome in our senior writer from the Undefeated, Mark Spears. So from your knowledge of the team, are there any concerns, Mark, surrounding the slump for Steph?
Steph says he's not worried. Kerr says it's a reminder that he's human. But Steph is also one that always looks at his statistics. And I know by looking at the box score yesterday, those good tidings from that game winner he made the other day probably just went away. He's shooting 41% from the field right now, 37% from three-point range. The good things is his assists are up. He's at 34 assists in the last 4 games on only 6 turnovers. But, the one thing with him is he says he's beating up himself a little bit. He said, who gives a damn about excuses? And so Steph is certainly thinking about it. I also see a new trend this season where we're seeing more longer defenders against Steph, which I think is distracting him more and more. And also, no Draymond Green, I think, has had an effect on him as well.
Right, and they were also shorthanded in that game because Klay Thompson was a late scratch yesterday. So is there any sense that his absence could extend beyond missing just that one game?
Yeah, no, the Warriors aren't too concerned. This is the same knee that Klay hurt in the finals in that Game 6 against the Raptors. But it's just some soreness, and they're erring on the side of caution. Everything I'm hearing is he's expected to play tomorrow night against Dallas. I'm probably more concerned right now for Draymond Green. This is, he still has another week before the Warriors reevaluate him.
Right.
But right now, I keep hearing there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm wondering if perhaps this could go a little longer. He's the heart and soul of this team. The same way we saw with Gobert's absence, how much it's hurt the Jazz. I think you're seeing that with the Warriors right now. They need him on both ends of the court. But, it's very uncertain when Draymond will be back.
Well, Klay, that's a bit of good news, right? And then, with those injuries that start at some point in the body and are radiating at to different places, like Draymond with his back and his calf, we certainly hope to see him coming back soon. Mark Spears, thank you so much. Really appreciate you stopping by NBA Today. Scored 30 or more points in 13 of his last 14 games. So, Chiney, what are you seeing with Embiid that's working so well offensively right now?
He's not on fire. He's on fire. And I know this man is on fire. I know a lot of people heard LeBron James say that he's in one of the best offensive zones of his career right now. Well, that is actually second statistically to Joel Embiid. Joel is having a dominant stretch right now, and it's unlocking his game like crazy. So I'll show you. Roll me my tape, producer Kwaku, baby. All right, let's start with the high post. Joel Embiid is 7 feet tall. He's got a 7'5" wingspan, and his shooting is elite. Look at this touch, but how hard is it as a defender to guard him when he has those natural biomechanics, a perfect release form? That's cash money. High post shooting, he's got that in his bag. His footwork actually works hand in hand with his assists. He's averaging a career high 4.3 assists per game so far this season. So when you space the floor and he's a threat passing the ball, look what happens to the defense. You bite, footwork works, turn around, easy bucket. You had 3 people and then he parted the Red Seas, pun intended. Reading the defense, he's at a high level at this too. All right, he sees the paint is vacated, and he's so great at making quick reads. The paint is open, so he attacks. He's second in the NBA in drawing fouls and free throws because he makes the read and goes aggressively. And speaking of which, the aggressive mindset is not just the paint, it's also on the perimeter. Right now, Joel Embiid is shooting a career high 39% from 3, but guess what? He doesn't settle. So the ball is ping-ponging. He doesn't settle. Nice little scoop to the rim. Again, finish tough at the basket. Joel Embiid is playing ridiculous amounts of basketball right now with his game. I just love that he's improved in small facets that has allowed him to take on a heavier workload. The Philadelphia 76ers have won 11 of their last 14 games, and it's due to that man.
But here's my question, Chiney. Can he sustain that level, Richard?
I think 100% he can sustain. Like, obviously, you're not going to just keep scoring 30 the rest of the season. He might have a game where he scores 22, mainly because their team is winning. No, I love what Joel Embiid. I think basically what he is showing is that he is the centerpiece of a championship team. So he's looking around. If I was Joel Embiid, which I am not, I would be looking around. It's like, hey, what more do you guys want me to do? If you don't find me some players to put around me so that I can go win a championship, because he is having a championship level season. Even last year, one of the guys for the MVP before his injury, before he had to take time off. And right now, his statistics put him in the MVP race again.
This is one thing I love about our studio. Momo, what's good, Momo? Would you say that Joel Embiid, nod your head, is he feeling 100% right now? He's feeling pretty good. That's the reason. I mean, him being consistent, and that's why I love this show. Shout out to Momo, who always has the line to Joel. Once he's healthy and feels like himself, he's an MVP candidate each and every year.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're noticing and seeing. But I also like how he's worked on his game. He's passing the ball. He's shooting the 3-ball better. I mean, what? You guys know him.
Yeah. When Philly goes, well, look, if this takes all year, okay, you see Joel Embiid. You're just going to go in there and say, hey, Joel, you're doing great this year. We'll see if we can run it back next year.
Right.
Because if you don't get something for Ben Simmons, you're not winning a championship this year.
You bringing up Ben Simmons?
It drives me nuts.
Well, I mean, we always saw what Joel Embiid did, but did you